Good morning, Bardstown and Nelson County. Welcome to another edition of Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford with you this morning. And as you can tell, my voice isn't what it normally is. Even more irritating to our listeners, I'm sure. Getting through a sinus infection, it just doesn't seem to want to go away. So anyway, tell my doctor out at the office building, I may see him this afternoon. Anyway, we have a very special studio guest, and we will have a guest by telephone in a few moments as well. And I'll turn it over to Margie for our introductions on our very special show today.
All right. Well, we're privileged to have with us this morning Dr. Chris King, who is a Bardstown City Schools English teacher, drama coach par excellence, and former wrestling coach, or may still be doing that. But Chris is, and full explanation here, Chris is also my son-in-law as well as our guest. So I will probably be saying Chris from now on, but you just think Dr. King.
Nah, Chris is fine.
Chris is one of 21 teachers from across the state who have been chosen by the Jewish Heritage Fund to teach about the Holocaust and to help teachers teach about the Holocaust. And the stated purpose of the Jewish Heritage Fund is to empower teachers to respectfully and practically teach about the Holocaust. And teachers are able to do that after about 5 months of intensive training. We're also going to have as guests by telephone Dr. Karen Patrone, the University of Kentucky professor who's the director of this project.
Yes.
So have I gotten anything wrong so far?
No, you're doing a fantastic job, Margie.
All right. Well, Chris, maybe you can start off by telling us how you became known about this project and how you got into it.
Sure, no problem at all. Well, we over the summer we got some emails about the UKJHF program, and spoke to Lauren Hill, who's the assistant director, and I was just very curious about it. One, I always loved learning new things. I always liked challenging myself as an educator, and I've always been interested in teaching aspects of the Holocaust, but it is quite a daunting project, and I want to do the subject justice. So I spoke with Lauren, and she just did a fantastic job of explaining everything to me. There's tons of resources, tons of highly qualified people who are a part of this program, and I knew that I wouldn't just be out there by myself, that I would have a lot of support.
Mm-hmm. So now you do most of this training. Did you have to attend classes at UK in person, or were you able to do this by Zoom or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. It started off with 3 days of intensive training at UK, in which the directors and other facilitators within the program met with us and the other teacher leaders from different parts of the state. And then from there, we meet bi-weekly in general via Zoom for an hour and a half, in which each week a different pair of teachers will present, some aspect of, Holocaust education that they could use, that any of us could use in the classroom. So we get a lot of real good hands-on training through the year as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, have you met a lot of these people in person then?
Yes, and in fact, we were all together at the training at UK, and we've stayed in touch. There's been other opportunities through the year to meet up at different times too.
Right. I think our
caller is on the line.
I think
cool.
Caller is on the line.
All right, if I get all the buttons pushed in the right order here. Good morning here on WBRT.
Good morning.
Good morning. Dr. Karen Patrone. Thank you for calling in today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
All right. I cannot hear. Are you still there?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear her?
I can
all
hear
right?
her, yeah. Do you want to use mine?
My earphones aren't working. No, it's important that you have them. Well, welcome, Dr. Patrone.
Use mine.
Here, let me change my earphones. All right. All right. Okay, I think I can hear it. Are you still there?
I am still here.
All right. Well, we're back. We're back online then. Well, Dr.
Excellent.
Patrone, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and Chris has already given us a little bit of an introduction to what this project is, and so I would like for you to give us the overall picture about how this started out, what it hopes to accomplish, what's the audience you're trying to reach, and the objectives that you want to achieve.
Absolutely. So the origin of this project comes from the fact that in 2018, the Kentucky State Legislature mandated Holocaust education in the Anne Klein and Fred Gross Holocaust Education Act. But we realized, we being Dan Fernheimer, another professor in Jewish studies at the University of Kentucky, and I, that there was a gap between the mandate and really intentional preparation for teachers to carry it out. And we realized that we, as sort of content specialists, had a special opportunity to help grow a network of teachers who were really ready and able to not only teach the Holocaust, but collaborate with us in understanding how best to teach it in the classroom. And that's how the idea was born. We were very fortunate to receive generous funding from the Jewish Heritage Fund in Louisville. And with that fund, we've been able to really recruit a group of teacher professionals to be teacher leaders. And they are compensated for their work, and that makes a big difference in understanding that this is a very serious job that we're all carrying out together. The central goal is to help teachers to be prepared to teach this incredibly difficult material in a state where there's hardly any Jewish population. There's 0.04% Jewish population in the state of Kentucky. And we don't want students to only know about Jewish people through the Holocaust. So we're trying very hard in this program to help teachers, to collaborate with teachers in developing lesson plans and curricula that incorporate Jewish life, Jewish history, Jewish culture, but also focus on what happened during the Holocaust in order that students should understand that very terrible time and that very complex circumstances that led to it.
Well, can you elaborate a little bit also on, and this is something that we had sort of discussed earlier, about the general climate now and about circumstances having to do with the population, about why it is particularly needed?
Yes, absolutely. So in the last decade or so, but especially sort of in the last few years, there's been a rising number of anti-Semitic incidents across the country and also across the state. This is true, I think, in terms of the climate where hate crimes and hate speech have become more common overall. Anti-Semitism is one of the rise in anti-Semitism has caused great concern. And in fact, Governor Bashir established a task force to combat anti-Semitism. And our project gave a presentation at the task force last week, a couple weeks ago. So the idea is, and this is proven by several studies in a variety of contexts, the American Jewish Committee, the ADL, Echoes and Reflections, have proven that Holocaust education helps people become more aware of anti-Semitism so that they can spot it and combat it. and that this is one of the most important. This is one of the most important reasons for our work.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in for a little bit too, Karen. One thing that I've really gotten out of this so far is just how we work at humanizing the whole process, because sometimes there's a real disconnect for students when they're learning about the Holocaust. That, for example, it seems like it's in the past, it happened over there, but really, the people who were involved were very much just like the rest of us. They were day-to-day people, who through a series of terrible decisions wound up creating a terrible storm of intolerance. And hopefully by talking about the Holocaust and some of the events that led up to it and things like that, then the students can also sort of see how they can stand up against intolerance in other ways in their day-to-day lives today.
Right. In other words, or how ordinary people react.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that's a very important aspect of studying the Holocaust and other genocides, is that there are many, as Chris said so eloquently, there are many day-to-day decisions made by day-to-day people that lead to these terrible results. And being able to show how that works and how perhaps you can stop it is really very important.
And just to add on, I think too, to help students gain confidence to be able to do that is one of the key aspects of this education initiative. At least for me, I was speaking earlier, Karen, about how I've always been interested in wanting to teach aspects of the Holocaust, but I've been a little intimidated by it. I want to do it justice, and the training has really helped me think of new approaches to work with students with really, really difficult subject matter and difficult histories and difficult to talk about topics. And to also keep in mind that they too may be going through their own traumatic experiences, and so we don't want to start talking about this trauma, the terrible traumas of the Holocaust, and then wind up triggering adverse reactions on their part. How can we, create a sense of community, with the students, so that then they feel safe, talking about topics like this.
How do you communicate and get people lined up for these seminars, or how do you translate this training for teachers? How do you get to that point? How do you get the people in? How do you choose who's going to do it, and the mechanics of the whole thing?
Sure.
Great question. Chris, you want me to tackle that?
Yes.
You want to?
Okay.
You go for it.
Okay.
Then I can talk about the baby steps that I've taken.
Right, and about then you're from your viewpoint.
Sure, exactly.
Go ahead.
So what the core of this training is a teachers leading teachers training. So the idea is that we will help a cohort of teachers to become experts. We call this group teacher leaders, and we're on our second cohort now. So last year we had 20 teacher leaders. This year we have 21 teacher leaders, and we're hoping to have more, at least 20 more next year, if not more. And this group of teachers gets intensive training, an intensive collaboration with us to think about how to present this material in the classroom. And so there's a 3-day orientation over the summer, and then there are bi-monthly meetings, 2 meetings a month. Not bi-monthly, 2 meetings a month. And in that, we are working together as a community, a cohort of teacher leaders, to tackle these problems and to prepare workshops for other teachers. So the teacher cohort of this year, 21 teacher leaders, is preparing a series of 13 workshops for teacher participants this spring. And those workshops are open to all teachers across the state. They are all across the state geographically. They are open to middle and high school teachers across the state, and teachers who participate will receive a stipend of $250 or PD credit, 10 hours of PD credit. And so we would encourage you to go to our website, which is Holocaust Education. If you just Google Holocaust Education and University of Kentucky, it's holocausteducation.uky.edu, and there you can register for our workshops. You can also put in an application to be a teacher leader for next year. So we are very excited by our process because we are trying to create networks of teachers across the state. And so all of our 41 teacher leaders and the 20 more that we're going to add next year will be leaders in their regions. And then hundreds of other participants have taken part in these workshops, and they can begin. You're allowed to take as many workshops as you'd like. So teachers can begin to gain expertise as well by taking our workshops.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, and as for me, I'm going to be largely running a workshop on April 27th in E-Town. Of course, Dr. Patrone will be there, Lauren Hill will be there, and my good friend Jason Davidson from Russell County Middle School will be there. So for teachers in this area, the E-Town workshop on the 27th would be a fantastic place to go. What I've done is I've reached out to superintendents in the Lincoln Trail region. It's about 8 counties. I've reached out to principals at high schools and middle schools, and curriculum coaches, curriculum leads in these different counties to help spread the word. And so far, we've got a decent turnout. We have about 16 people signed up. Hopefully, we'll have more. We have another month here, but just kind of spreading the word and asking people to help us out has been working decently so far.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I should add. So what's exciting is that there are workshops in localities. There was just one in Paducah. There was one in Danville. Soon there's going to be one in Columbia and Ashland and other there are other places around the state. But there will also be several that are virtual. There are 3 workshops that are on Zoom. And so for people who are who are interested but who are not able to get to one of the locations, there are virtual options.
Well, it sounds like a pretty well organized machine here.
It is. As I said at the top of the show, I was super impressed with the depth of thinking that went into this program.
Mm-hmm.
The quality of the people involved, the quality of the support. So it helped to make it a less intimidating decision to get involved.
Now, for the necessary curriculum material, does UK provide that, or you have to get it on your own, or you? Because printing off that would be an expense too for the person doing it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing that the teacher leaders are doing, in addition to leading workshops, the teacher leaders are creating curriculum. And so there is on our website the opportunity, again, it's holocausteducation.uky.edu. There is a growing library of curriculum that is free to anyone to use. And the idea is that this is curriculum that's created for Kentucky teachers by Kentucky teachers, paying attention both to the state standards and to the local context, thinking about things like trauma, local conditions, sort of trauma within that students that you have been dealing with might have experienced, dealing with local conditions. And so we are hoping that these lesson plans will be a lot more useful than the sort of standard download a plan from the Holocaust Museum. Mm-hmm. We also want to emphasize that there's Jewish life in Kentucky, and so some of our lesson plans are built around survivors who settled in the state of Kentucky after World War II, and so these are our neighbors, and the lessons are talking about their experiences. So that's what we're trying to do in terms of finances. I mean, a lot of these things would be, can be, used electronically and made into electronic format so that the students can can access them.
And as for me, with putting together my lesson plan, just as Dr. Patrone mentioned, is, so much now can be, put on there digitally, where people can just go to the lesson plan, they can click it and they can print it out themselves. But also a lot of the materials that we'll be, sharing with people at Elizabethtown, one, they can have that in a digital format, or I will be taking some copies of some things as well. So, yeah.
So when is this workshop in Elizabethtown, which would be for the people in this area?
Right. Of course, again, they could go to any one of them. I'm also going to be helping Jason Davidson on April 20th at Lindsey Wilson. But yeah, for Lincoln Trail, this will be the closest one. There might be one in Louisville and Bullitt County, which could be close for some people as well. But it's April 27th, and it'll be at the Visitor Center in E-Town.
April 27th at the Visitor Center.
Right.
Okay.
And,
but they
8:30 to 3:30. I mean, of course, they can get there at 8 and have some coffee and, some pastries and hang out with us and all that.
So, but they would have to sign up beforehand for this.
Yes.
That is correct.
Yes.
And all of the sign-ups are on the website, Holocaust Education, all one word, .uky.edu.
Okay.
And so if you go to that website, you can register. You do need to register in order to attend, but these are free. In fact, they're even more than free. You receive $250 of a stipend because we believe that teachers are professionals and their time is valuable.
Right.
And so they will receive a stipend, or many teachers need a certain number of hours of PD training. So you can either have, because of the way that the rules are, you can either have professional development hours, or you can have a stipend. So that is and in terms of the locality, even though this one is going to be in Elizabethtown, people are welcome to go to anyone. They don't, if the date doesn't work and you'd like to attend a workshop that's going to be in Lexington or Louisville or somewhere else, teachers from the whole state are welcome to go anywhere in the state for these workshops.
Right, exactly. Well, I think it may be about time for us to take a commercial break.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so in just a few minutes after the commercial break, we'll be back with Brad Brooks and Dr. Chris King and Dr. Karen Patrone.
All right. All right. You're back with Bradford and Brooks and our special guest here in the studio, Dr. Chris King from the Bardstown City School System, and on telephone, Dr. Karen Patrone at the University of Kentucky. And we've been discussing teaching the Holocaust and a program that Dr. King's involved in to help. This is a difficult subject, and with all the revisionist history that seems to be out there these days, is a very important topic. So I'll turn it back over to you two.
All right. Well, Chris, we were talking about the workshop which you will be leading in Elizabethtown on April the 27th. So, talk to us about that and what can the participants there expect, and what do they expect, and what will they come out with?
Well, I think one of the main things is that it's not designed to just kind of overwhelm people with information about the Holocaust, which is a limitless topic, as anybody who starts studying it knows. But what we really hope to do is give each teacher some confidence to go back to their classroom and deal with some aspect of the Holocaust with which they feel comfortable. And as Dr. Patrone mentioned, one cool thing about JHF is that they're building basically a data bank of lesson plans for teachers to use at any time. And these lesson plans can be anywhere from like a one-day kind of lesson plan on to units. Some people are designing longer units or several days or lots of options there for folks. What we're gonna, I can walk you through our agenda on the 27th. So
of course, we're going to get together and, just kind of introduce ourselves to everybody. But one thing we're going to do is go over the guidelines and definitions for teaching the Holocaust. That's from the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. It's good to, get comfortable with the terms and, give some direction to the folks, because how do you even start to approach a concept like or a topic as the Holocaust? How are you going to define that? What's going to be your groundwork and all of that? We're also going to touch upon trauma-informed teaching, where again we start to look at how students might perceive these topics, and what can we do? What steps can we take in preparing them to be open to learning about it, so that they're not again how their own trauma triggered, or that they just shut down, or they feel a disconnect.
Right.
Dr. Patrone is going to lead a nice session on what context you need to understand the Holocaust. Again, I don't want to speak for her, but that's going to be a session where, looking at events and situations that directly led to this travesty. Then, after some incredible pizza from Impellizzeri's, thank you so much, Impellizzeri's, shameless plug. We're going to be blessed with Dr. John Rosenberg via Zoom. He's a Holocaust survivor who lives in Prestonburg, and he's going to share some of his story, and we're going to hopefully have some question and answer, from the attendees, so attendees would be able to talk to him, although not in person, but at least to have that connection. And we also are going to talk about ways to use other survivor stories, because as you mentioned at the top of the show, unfortunately, so many of these people are becoming less and less in our populace. So what resource does a teacher have in different areas of the state or the U.S. as far as using Holocaust stories? Well, luckily, there's lots of video footage. There's lots of interviews. There's lots of stories that they have written. So we will get into that as well. One aspect. Please.
Just I want to pop here and say, and there's an excellent resource for Kentucky survivors called This Is Home Now, which was put together by Arwen Donahue and Rebecca Gale Howell. And that is a collection of testimonies from Holocaust survivors who settled in Kentucky. So I always find it very powerful to think about the Holocaust survivors who are not, just Holocaust survivors, but who are our neighbors in Kentucky. Yes. Sorry to interrupt you.
No. It's fine. It's a wonderful book. It's a wonderful book. And of course, these sessions are going to be geared to where it's not just us talking at the people. We're going to do what we can to make them interactive. There's going to be plenty of time for reflective writing, reflective discussion, some back and forth, because we want to hear from them as well. There's after our lunch, we have a really interesting session. There's a student at I think it's Louisville Manual, and this was someone, and Dr. Patrone can probably talk a little bit about this as well. During the summer training, he wound up, long story short, creating. He has these VR headsets, these virtual reality headsets that he can bring into the classroom, and so then, in this case, us or the attendees or students can have these virtual reality headsets on, and you can take basically a virtual tour of, say, Auschwitz, or you can take virtual tours of other places, and it is extremely powerful. And you can also watch interviews with Holocaust survivors through these headsets. So that will be a really interesting way to bring some technology into this. Jason Davidson is going to talk about ways to use film and movies in your classroom to talk about the Holocaust. I believe he's going to use part of Life is Beautiful, which was an Oscar Award winner from a few decades ago. I'm going to talk about a poet that I've wound up really getting into years ago, and I found his story very compelling. Miklos Radnoti, a Hungarian poet. He was in a forced labor camp and eventually down in Serbia. And even he was a well-known poet at the time. and highly respected, and here he is in a forced labor camp.
Right.
And even when he was in the forced labor camp, he kept writing poetry, and I find that to be overwhelming. How can you, in the midst of something like that, still feel compelled to create art? And unfortunately, he was eventually executed. He was killed, put in a mass grave, and about a year and a half later, his wife and friends, found the mass grave, and they exhumed the bodies, and Red Nolte was identified by the little journal of poetry that he kept in his pocket. And reading those poems is extremely powerful. So that's one. I want to share his story. I want to celebrate his life, and I want to celebrate his poetry in the workshop as well. A little later, Dr. Patrone was going to do some more heavy lifting with Jim Crow and the Nuremberg laws, and I'm sure she'll be more than happy here, maybe in a little bit, to talk a little bit about that connection. How here in the U.S., we had these terrible laws, and Hitler and other Germans saw them as an inspiration to create similar such laws against the Jews. And then
I never heard that.
Oh yeah, and Dr. Patrone, if you don't care to jump in here in a minute with that, just a little bit, that might be interesting for our listeners.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So there is so one of the things that there has been recent research on is the ways in which the groups of lawyers from Nazi Germany came to the United States to study U.S. laws, because they were, this is right after they came to power, and they were interested in separating Jewish people away from German people. And so they decided that they wanted to understand models where there was segregation. And so they looked to the United States for the ways in which the United States law segregated certain citizens from others. And this included Native Americans and African Americans during the Jim Crow era. And also they were very interested in the 1924 immigration law, which limited certain groups from coming to the United States. So this is the core of what we're talking about. But the goal of it is not just to understand the connections between Jim Crow and Nazi Germany, but also to help teachers think about places where they can discuss these larger topics within other aspects of the curriculum. And by sort of thinking about Jim Crow in connection with Nazism, there's more opportunities, especially for social studies teachers, to address some of the key questions related to the Holocaust, related to racial oppression of the Nazis, of the Nazi oppression of the Jews, in a broader context, and also make connections to students across the curriculum. And so that's one of the reasons why we are including this, not just because we want to be able to think about it. I would just add, one of the dilemmas in the curriculum for the state is that many English language arts teachers are given or have 9 weeks in which they are doing Holocaust material, for example, the Diary of Anne Frank, or the drama based on the Diary of Anne Frank. But in social studies, there's a very limited amount of time in which to handle the topic. And so we've been working with teachers to strategize and to brainstorm about how to get these topics into the social studies curriculum where they're touched on in multiple ways and multiple times, so the students can start doing the analytical work of connecting these things together. And that's why we introduced the Jim Crow and Nazi Nuremberg law as part of the workshop. That's as a session in the workshop.
And then, of course, we're going to have plenty of time to, as I mentioned before, to work on some reflective writing, some debriefing. I'm very curious to see basically how the flow of the day affects the attendees. I'm very curious about that. I just want to, I'm very curious with the pre-work that they're going to do, what some of the things are that they say in their writing or they discuss. And then once they start to go through the different sessions, I'm very curious to see what their thinking is at the end of that day. Hopefully it'll be deepened and improved just as mine has been from, receiving this training.
So is this a one-shot deal? In other words, is the workshop what happens that day, or do you carry on with that? Do you?
That's a great question. So a couple of things. One is that teachers who are interested can apply for teacher leaders, although the deadline is before this workshop. So they may have to kind of think in advance if this is something of interest to them, that they should go ahead and apply and see what happens. But also they can attend other workshops. There are this season there are 13 workshops, of which there are still 11 remaining, and so they can attend multiple workshops. We have also been, with the generosity of the Jewish Heritage Fund and the Jewish Federation of the Bluegrass and the Central Kentucky Community Foundation, been able to support teachers who have gone through our program by helping them to attend other special events, other orientations. For example, at the David and Nancy Wolf Center for Humanity, and I guess for Holocaust and Humanity, has special teacher trainings, and we've been able, thanks to the generosity of all of these different folks, to sponsor some of our teachers. If you've attended one of our workshops, you have the opportunity to attend other workshops. We've also found some special opportunities for teachers in the classroom. We might be able to help them buy classroom sets of books. We might be able to bring the virtual reality headsets to the classroom. So once you've taken one of our workshops, you are, sort of in a group of teachers who may apply for some of these special activities that we provide. And ideally, you would, want to attend more workshops and think about becoming a teacher leader in the next round.
And one thing, too, that I want to stress at our workshop is that I hope that the attendees realize that they are now a part of a community. They've taken a step in this region to attend this workshop and get involved in this discussion, and realize that after that day, then that group of people who are there, including myself, we're all kind of in it together. So I'm happy to support them. I certainly don't think Dr. Patrone and others would be upset if somebody got in touch with them with questions and things like that. But any follow-up support that I could give, I'd be happy to do. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Chris, for mentioning that, because the other thing that we're working on and we hope to roll out over the summer and into the fall is to sort of create networks of teachers where there'll be a teacher in a certain area who will essentially help the teachers in that area to develop a Holocaust curriculum with or without the workshops, right? So that the idea is to create really intentional networks across the entire state, where we have, we can't agree whether we nodes or people don't like nodes, but networks, some kind of connection. And Chris is going to be there to support the teachers in the region beyond this workshop. And we're going to try to formalize that and create a sort of a set of networks around the state so that teachers may gather together, they may have meetings, they may have seminars to talk through how best to do this and to try out, their classroom plans and see what, and get some feedback on them.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly hope our broadcast is going to maybe make some more people aware of this program, because, as I said, the only way I heard of it is because Chris is my son-in-law. But I think it's a terrific program. I wonder, and I'm sure that you probably do, but does part of this training talk about the historical history of things that have led up to the Holocaust?
Absolutely. So one of the one of the things that we've done is try to sort of set the stage. The Holocaust didn't appear out of nowhere, as one of our speakers recently said. It isn't as if aliens came down and made the Holocaust happen, right? What happens is that there are many long-term factors, including the rise of historical anti-Semitism, and then in the late 19th century, political anti-Semitism. And that's so we try very hard to talk about the long-term factors going back hundreds and, in some cases thousands of years, but also then help students to see the steps, right? That when Nazi Germany came to power in 1933, the idea of the Holocaust. I mean, certainly Hitler had sort of said that he wanted to exterminate the Jews in his earlier writings, but it was the kind of thing where nobody believed him, right? And it's a long way, and it's many steps, and the actions of millions of people to get from Hitler coming to power in 1933 to the murderous actions of the Holocaust, especially in 1941 to 1943. So we try to help people help teachers to both understand, but then also to help them to think about how to teach how this could happen. What are the necessary preconditions for this murderous event to happen? The legislation is not just about the Holocaust, but also about other genocides. And so we encourage the teachers to think about other examples and the different ways in which the kinds of the generalities, the kinds of factors that led to the Holocaust also have led to other genocidal situations and other murderous situations.
Now, I'm not really sure if I understand. Is this a state law or is this a federal law?
It's a state law. This was a law, a mandate by the Kentucky State Legislature in 2018.
Okay.
So it is a state law. It is there's no federal law, but I don't think. But this is a state law. Well, Kentucky is one of about 30 states across the country that have state laws related to curriculum.
So the Jewish Heritage Fund is just here in Kentucky. In other words, this is not happening anywhere else.
That's correct. Although we are very, very proud of our model, and we hope to, we've been speaking with other organizations, and we hope to, let Kentucky lead the way, because we think our model is both sustainable and replicable and in other places. But this is an entirely Kentucky. What we're doing is a program that is entirely Kentucky driven, Kentucky based, Kentucky funded. And it's what our state is doing. Other states, of course, have programs, and we've been in contact with sort of the people in other states to see what they're doing. But our approach is special because of the teacher-centeredness of it, because we are developing communities of teachers, because we are letting the teachers lead the way, collaborating with them to lead the way, giving them what they need, but also they help us to understand what is important in the classroom.
But not telling them what to teach, but just telling them how to teach. Exactly.
We're trying to help put the best curriculum in their hands, right? Or help them to develop the best curriculum. Not even put it in their hands, but help them to sort of think about what the best curriculum is. But we are not mandating. Well, the state mandates that you have to teach this in the classroom, but our program is simply to help the teachers be confident in carrying out the mandate on their own terms. Right, we are not dictating anything.
Right, and I guess the question I would ask you, Chris, is how has this been significant to you? How, as a teacher, what does this opportunity mean to you?
Well, one, I'm honored by it to be able to go in and talk about so many topics related to this. Excuse me, I'm going to try not to have a coughing fit, but also it's helped give me a lot more confidence and ease with it. It's made me much more conscientious in all of my teaching, in thinking about how I approach various subject matters. Whether it's to the magnitude of the Holocaust or simply talking to a student about analysis about something. So I've really gotten a lot out of it. I feel like. And this is what I would recommend for other teachers too, especially if you just want to get better at your craft, that this is going to be the kind of thing that's going to have you question what you do and why you do it, and focus on how can you do your topic justice and do it in a way so that it does connect with the students.
Do you have any questions? All right. Well, we're coming up pretty close to the end here, so kind of do some roundups here.
Sure.
And, is there any part of this that we haven't touched on?
Yeah. I would. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris. You go first.
Okay. I was going to say, we've touched on it some, but just to kind of, revisit it, the fact that it does create a community. As I mentioned, I've really gotten close and bonded with the other teachers in this program. I really value the relationships I've formed with Dr. Patrone, Lauren Hill, Jill Abney, so many others. And I feel like once my tenure with this is finished, I don't feel like my work is over, and I don't feel like my connections are over in any way with these people. And I think that's been one of the most powerful things for me, and that comes across in our bi-weekly meetings. Everybody's really glad to see each other. We're really curious as to what people have been doing lately, not just in their classrooms, but with their lives in general. And it's just been very rewarding.
So it's been a personal as well as professional boon.
Very much so, very much so. It doesn't seem like work because it's something that you're doing because of your interest and the joy of doing something that is rewarding work.
Great.
Yeah.
I think that Jim has a couple of announcements.
Right. First, I want to thank Dr. Patrone for joining us by telephone today from UK. We appreciate your participation so much today, and thank you for calling.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, we'll say goodbye to Dr. Patrone here, and Dr. King. Thank you as well.
No problem at all. It's been an honor. Thanks for asking me to be here.
It's been wonderful having you in the studio. And like I said, my daughter says hello.
Yeah.
She was happy to see you somewhere.
Exactly.
Just a couple of announcements. Being still a member of the Republican Party, I have to do my due diligence, Margie. The party's having their Lincoln Day dinner Saturday after this Saturday. There's a banner ad on the Nelson County Gazette, or you can go to the Nelson County Organization of Republican Women, if you can remember all that, on Facebook. You can go to the Gazette, and it's linked to their Facebook page for more information. And also, my son called me Monday night, and he's down at Western Kentucky University. He said, "Daddy, do you know who they're having speak down here?" He said, and I said, "Who?" He said, "Kyle Rittenhouse." The local chapter of Turning Point USA has invited him. He's on a university speaking tour. And of course, that name may not immediately ring a bell, but he was a 17-year-old in Wisconsin who was in one of the riots, went to a riot with a semi-automatic rifle, and he ended up shooting 3 people and killing 2 of them. And he was charged with homicide, and he was acquitted on the grounds of self-defense. So, now I don't know what he's going to speak about, but it has certainly really riled up the folks down at Western Kentucky University. It is an free speech issue, but yet, when it's repugnant speech, or it kind of stretches the boundaries there. But the university president is on record saying they can't control what campus groups, the speakers at campus groups bring in, which is true. But the police departments down there are ready for if there's any trouble. There will be groups protesting. The room he's supposed to speak in, I thought maybe it was Diddle Arena, but it's a room that'll hold about 100 people. And so I suspect strongly that 3/4 of those will probably be protesters. So anyway, we'll see what news comes out of Bowling Green after tonight's session with Kyle Rittenhouse. Anyway, I think he's trying to make a buck off his notoriety. Anyway, good luck with that. All right, well, that's going to do it for this issue of Bradford and Brooks. Thanks for listening, and we'll have it up on YouTube later in the week. Until then, Margie and I will be back next Wednesday, and so will my voice. And we will be back with another Bradford and Brooks next Wednesday at 11. Thanks for listening, everybody, and have a great week.